Morning, it's about -6, -7 at the minute. We're near the coast. We're on our way to Narva, but we're at the Soviet statue graveyard. So we're going to take a look at some of these Soviet statues. When Russia had power over Estonia, they destroyed all the monuments or removed all of the monuments that the Estonians had. But when the Estonians gained their independence again, they removed and destroyed the Russian ones. Somebody managed to salvage some, and they've been placed here for collection. So these are Russian monuments that would have been probably around Tallinn, Tartu, and places like that. So we'll take a look at each one. This is a 1948 memorial monument to the Brothers Cemetery of Fighters who died for Soviet power and to Soviet soldiers who fell in the Great Patriotic War. This is a monument dedicated to Mikhail Akram, Julie Carlson and Rudolf Imberg, who died during a short-lived rule of the Bolsheviks. And the three are there. This is another monument dedicated to that Mikhail Akram, who was one of the Bolsheviks who ruled here for a while. This is a leading communist, Viktor Kingissepp, who was seen as a martyr. There were lots and lots of streets named after him while he was alive. And this is Viktor Kingissepp again, who was the communist leader. This was put up in the centre of the city. This is Yevgeny Nikonov. He was a famous sailor, apparently, off one of the ships called Minsk. He was also a hero of the Soviets. You might notice that actually his head's missing, but when they tore down a lot of the monuments, they didn't care about whether they broke them or not. This is a monument to the Soviet intelligence agent, forgot her name now, Helen Kuhlman. This is like a three-part monument. It is basically dedicated to the workers. So part of it is for the workers for freedom, the workers taking up arms, and I think it's pushing back against the Baltic, I think. So there's three parts. The other part we can't get round the other side. It's about 3 foot deep in snow. So I guess it's basically what the Russians would call a freedom monument. So workers fighting for freedom, even though I think they were really oppressed. This is a monument to the Estonians who fought on the side of the Russians. They were called the Red Hunters of Estonia. This is the monument to Red Army commanders Alexander Cook and Cork. Well, Tartu is Estonian, so I presume that they were part of the Estonian people that fought for the Red Army. This is Hans Pugelman. He was the communist leader and one of the leaders of the Estonian Communist Party. He was one of the few people to be executed once Estonia regained its independence. This is Jacob Palvadra. He was a Russian commander and lecturer. This is Johannes Rometka. He was a division commander in the Red Army. This is Jan Alvetsti Bust. He was one of the leading Communist Party members of Estonia and also a Marxist writer. This fellow was a Soviet Lieutenant General. His name Lembit Pana. This is probably one of the most famous ones. This is Joseph Stalin. He was leader of the Communist Party and leader in Russia. This is Mikhail Kalinini. His right hand was stolen by bronze thieves. I think there was a lot of competition for this statue. It was supposed to be in the square in Stalingrad and finished up here in Estonia. And here we've got Lenin, Vladimir Lenin. Another statue of the main man himself. This was supposed to go in the main square in Pärnu, or that's where it was taken from. This statue of Lenin stood in the Jomvi Palace of Culture. This is Lenin again. In case you were wondering, he was the founder of the Soviet Union and revolutionary leader. Quite a big monument, that. And there is Tallinn in the distance, and that's the Baltic. And I can tell you, it is Baltic. Looks a lovely, nice, clean sea though. It's very cold today, very cold. Give you an idea, this is a main road. The area where these monuments have been placed that we've just been looking at is at a big park, and it does a lot to do with the history of Estonia. There's should we say, a cinema here, and that's telling you where the cinema is. How cool is that for a sign? So, film museum is down there. We won't be going because Estonian history isn't really our thing. This is a monument to the Estonians that died under the communist regime. The wall is depicting or symbolising the walls that they executed people against. 1/5 of the population of Estonians died under and because of the regime. They were murdered, imprisoned or deported. The names of people run along the wall, so they go all the way down there, full length of this, and all the way down this side. So they are two, I don't know how many names there are on the box, but they go all the way up there. So one would assume that that's pretty much everybody's name, but they are stacked too high. I'll count how many there are in a, just to count up, there are 50 names in a box, and they are 2 boxes high. So that's 100 names per section, and that runs all the way up this side and all the way up that side. Wow, and I never realised just how much people suffered under what was a communist regime. Anyway, we're going to take a walk between the wall and up to the what's called a memorial garden. This is the garden at the top end of the walls. The garden is circular around it and is made up of apple trees. So they say it's supposed to be apple trees and honeybees, but not snow white turtle doves, as the seekers would have been singing. So this is a memorial garden. I think they're supposed to look like tombs, but Well, I'll have a look, see if we can find out what that's about. We were trying to figure out why it said honeybees when they're just apple trees, but actually on the wall, we just walked so far down, are these bees, honeybees. So it starts off with just the odd one or two, like this. And then, when you get nearer to the middle of the wall, there are thousands of them. Some of them are grouped together, some of them are singular. So, there's a singular one. There's lots of them together. There's two bees. Wow. We think, being as a fifth of the population, and it's a small country, is actually 75,000. We're wondering, there can't be 75,000 bees on there.
We're in bunches, aren't we?
And some of them are in bunches. Plus, I presume there is the other side as well. I think each one represents a death. And there's two sides to the wall. Where we thought those were looking like some sort of tomb things, they're not. They're benches, so you can sit and contemplate the garden. Well, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I think it's where you can contemplate what's gone by and what the future holds, which I suppose is hope, I would have thought. But absolutely brilliant. And those actually look really good with the snow on them. And they're the honeybees. Honeybees and apple trees. Look at those icicles. Looks like if you tapped them, you could play them. This area is a memorial to those that died in the Second World War. So what it appears to be, a bit like a cenotaph. I'm assuming that because of the dates that are written on there. But all around here are crosses in threes. I'll zoom in a little bit. So there are crosses everywhere in threes. I can't really tell why, but they're hidden in the woods as well. Lots of crosses all through the woods, and behind us wow. What a really nice place. So here's a bit of a guess, but I'm assuming that that's what this is to do with, is the Second World War and people that died. We've just come across this gravestone there and used our Google Translate on it, which actually tells us that this is a German war cemetery. So I would assume that there are other graves that are underneath all the snow. There are a lot of names that are listed here, so I would assume that, yeah, Heinz Zimmermann. These must be some of the Germans that died here. There's quite a lot that would have died. Wow. So, German war cemetery. maybe there's some graves that are hidden underneath the snow, but all of their names are here. There are quite a few of them. Their names and either their rank or what they did seems to be on there. Yeah, didn't expect that at all. Another kind of memorial, a bit more arty this one, not really sure the meaning of this particular one, but the view from here is spectacular. Also got past Christine's head. There's the sun. Tallinn in the distance, and then just looking over parts of the Baltic. The crosses that are looking out to sea here, these three, are there to represent or to remember those that fought for the defence of Estonia in 1944. Okay, this is how we think it pans out. So, the Estonians got themselves independence, but the Russians came back and took over. Then, during the war, 1940, and that era, the Germans came and they occupied Estonia, which helped free them from the Russians. But after the war, Estonia went back to being part of the Russian, I suppose, empire you would call it, and all those people that fought for the Defence League, the Estonians that fought for their freedom and fought for the oppression against what was the Russians, were rounded up and executed. So some of them were just junior officers, some of them senior officers. There was around 800 of them in total. So the whole memorial garden is for those Germans that died here, for the Estonians that died here under the regime of Russia, and those that fought against the Russians. That's how I think I understand it. Along this part of the wall, I'm not going to read them all, but that tells you some different stories about what happened under the regime of the Red Army of the Soviets. So, for an example, on the 14th of June 1941, the Soviet occupying regime committed its first act of genocide against the Estonian people. A secret decision by the Soviet government determined categories of people who were to be deported. The families of the Estonian elite became its first victims, including 2,578 children. A second deportation from the western Estonian islands followed in July. Most of the heads of families were subsequently murdered or died in forced labour camps. Thousands of their family members died during the forced resettlement due to illness and starvation and inhumane conditions. In total, over 10,000 people were taken from Estonia to Russia in cattle cars in 1941. So I never realised that the Russians did these things. You just associate it all with the Germans. So there's another one, violence against civil servants. In 1940, 133 higher state civil servants served in the government apparatus, 44 of whom were arrested. 8 of the 17 high-ranking civil servants were imprisoned during the first year of the Soviet occupation. The imprisonments began with the highest-ranking police officials. The Chancellor of Justice and the Secretary of State were arrested and died in imprisonment in Russia. Most of the individuals who were arrested were murdered or died in inhumane conditions. Over the next couple of years, those who managed to return to their Estonian homeland were forced to give up their occupation, to live in hardship, and were in constant fear. There's another one, well, there's lots of them really. People arrested in Estonia were forcibly removed from their homeland to gulag prison camps in distant regions of the Soviet Union with harsh climates. Prisoners were forced to perform extremely hard physical labour, including mining, logging work and construction. Political prisoners were transferred to separate strict regime camps. In 1948, forced labour beyond the strength of the prisoners, starvation, inhumane living condition and violence took the lives of thousands who'd been taken from Estonia to the Gulag. The executions of prisoners and the death rate among prisoners were the highest in 1942. There are loads of these all along this wall telling lots of these different little stories. I mean, reading these out, it sounds like you're actually talking about the Germans, but you're not. It was the Russians. It was the Germans that actually freed them from the Russian terror that they were suffering. So, I suppose it's kind of a bit strange, really, because we don't look at as the Germans as being like that. This side of the wall doesn't appear to have the same things on. I think there might be a few of the bees that are on there. Okay, we're at the Church of the Icon of the Mother of God. So we're going to see if we can get in this one. Then it's on to Narva. So, Church of the Icon of the Mother of God. These are the gates in. How cool are they? Never seen bells on gates before. But, really nice. That's where we're heading. Looks like a summer house, that. I don't think we can get in. It's all fenced off at the front, unless we can get in round the other side. But we'll have a look. On our way to Narva now, which is on the border with Russia. It's about, I think it's about 100 or so kilometres from St. Petersburg. The weather looks a little bit like we're going to get some more snow, but no. See what Narva's like. Well, this is the flat that we're stopping in. There's a corridor coming through the main door into the corridor. Not bad for what we would say was 46 quid for 2 nights. Toilet, well, bathroom, water heater, shower. Big fridge in the room. Super-sized TV. Kitchen. Christine's got tea on. There's a room. And this is the bedroom. There's Christine working on a computer, doing something, not got a clue what. And there's the bed. So we're quite pleased about that for 46 quid. Well happy.